Pope Francis is urging world leaders not to engage in military action against Syria. Pope Francis urged G20 leaders to abandon the futile pursuit of a military solution in Syria and work instead for dialogue and negotiation to end the conflict. In a letter to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is hosting this week's G20 summit, the Pope said that, quote, one-sided interest, end of quote, had prevailed in Syria, preventing a peaceful solution. Pope Francis is set to host a peace vigil in St. Peter's Square on Saturday. Welcome back to Morning Express. Whatever your weather, wear a smile on your face and ensure you have a lovely furahi day. It is Friday indeed. So happy it's Friday. Are you happy it's Friday?
Of course it is.
This must be Karibu sana. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Time for our press review. We begin with the Standard. And of course, yesterday, did you watch the proceedings?
It should have been insane for me not to watch it.
Yeah. Very interesting. I remember I was just sitting at home watching, and that walkout, and that's the headline on the Standard. Walkout as MPs vote for Kenya to ditch ICC. What did you think of the walkout? First of the entire, let's begin with the entire debate and the arguments presented. Well,
for me, I think the entire debate was really futile because when you look at the terrain of numbers, you would easily predict the outcome.
Right.
And what the MPs are trying to do today is to play to the public gallery, because I don't think President Kenyatta or his deputy are interested in this kind of sideshows. Right. They've indicated in black and white that they're going to work with ICC. So one fails to understand why the MPs were doing this walkout. And for the first time in a long while, I never knew that I would agree with Mr. Sakaja, who said that probably they need Dr. Franklin Njenga when they go to Mombasa, because there was so much heated emotions and there was no rational thinking in the conversation. And I think for the CORD MPs to walk out, it really is you cannot blame for that, because they were expressing a view. They said they don't want to be associated with a motion which is going to pull Kenya out of the ICC. And some of their views were very reasonable. They said this ICC is not meant for Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto. It's meant for posterity. That when you have a very good constitution today, maybe in the next 10 years, you may have a rogue president, and we need Big Brother watching you from somewhere. So for me, I think they were expressing a very good view. And on the same note, Jubilee also were expressing their views. So now it depends on Kenyans to identify with a particular view.
With a particular view.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that they walked out because they knew they were not going to win? I mean, the numbers, of course, tilted against them. So they felt that, oh, well, after Midiwa shouted, you are thieves. They felt we might as well go. We made our point now. Because they already knew they were not going to win. So it was, as you said, futile. It was
futile. And again, Wanjiku in Kenya is becoming very sharp. Yeah. Maybe in the next 10 years, we shall look at the Hansard and find out which MPs voted for this ICC withdrawal. I know some of them may need to pay for their sins at that stage.
Right.
So for them to walk out, I mean, they're communicating to posterity that there was no difference. Whether or not we sat within the chambers, Jubilee would still have their day.
Okay. And we have Nyenze here saying that I thought we were going to discuss more pressing issues such as the VAT Act that has seen prices of goods rise, or the insecurity in the country, not the ICC. Kajwang saying future generations will look at us, the house that withdrew the protection that Kenyans painstakingly held as a buffer against human rights abuses. And Rachel Shabesh says we want to ask justice not only for the suspects but also the victims who say they don't know the witnesses at the ICC and told Bensouda this country had healed. Very interesting, just some of the things they were saying yesterday in the debate. And then the big question now is what next after the vote?
Well, for Mr. Honorable Nyenze, again, he's also playing to the public gallery, thinking that Kenyans are stupid. Everybody in Kenya knows Parliament was summoned to discuss ICC. They're not going to discuss the VAT bill or discuss unemployment Kenya or how to reduce the cost of living. So for him to tell us again that he was hoping we're going to discuss this kind of bills is misleading us. He's the minority leader. So he actually knows the parliamentary business, and they sit in the House Business Committee, so they would know. I mean, the only person who wouldn't know what they're talking about is anybody who doesn't sit in Parliament. And it was in the public domain from the Special Gazette notice that people were going to discuss ICC. But I think after what they did yesterday, then they're going to come up with a bill, which again they will discuss. Chances of it are, going through all the readings probably in one evening. Again, the probabilities are approaching one. And of course, the bill will be presented to the president. Now, it would be interesting to see how President Kenyatta reacts to that bill, because he's got very specific interest in that particular bill. And it would be important that for us to go to a referendum for the entire nation to vote on this. And again, if the terrain of numbers is anything to go by, probability again of it going through is very high. But I think the president will now be expected to behave like a statesman, not as an affected party, and probably say no to the bill. Because this is not about us today. It's for posterity, it's for future generations.
And very important, I thought at the time when Sakaja stood to just propose that amendment, because as it stood, the motion, it was threatening to look as though, Kenya will not cooperate to the ICC if in fact the country manages to pull out of the ICC. But amending that, and of course everybody later supporting it, do you think they had actually just rushed into writing the motion? Because clearly that was a dangerous position they were putting themselves in already.
Well, I think for Sakaja, for the first time, he's made the Kenyan youth very proud, because as we indicated earlier on, he was probably the only sober member of parliament yesterday. And when he started speaking, he took up the tone. You would imagine this guy is speaking from a coin point of perspective, because he was very rational. And for me, I think he's done as very proud. In as much as he's the one who assisted the president take office, he's done very well. And he's looking at the future, because most of the members of parliament, especially from the Jubilee side, were tripping all over themselves to please Ruto and to please Kenyatta. They don't care about the future. And that's very bad, because it reflects that our nation today is run by special interest groups. They don't care about Wanjiku, they don't care about posterity.
Okay, so what next? We understand that Kenya now government to introduce a bill within 30 days to repeal the International Crimes Act, and then deliver a notice of withdrawal to the UN Secretary General, wait for 12 months for the notice to mature. So definitely this is something that will play out in a span of time, quite some time before we see it come to its final conclusion.
Probably 3 years. And as the MP for Kitutu Church South, Honorable Richard Onyonka, said, the horse has already bolted. So, don't bother closing the stable, because the horse has already left. If it was going to affect the president, it would have been done long time ago. But now, it's what you said the other day, that for us, it's a firefighting approach to issues. That's what we do. We are not supposed to, we don't look at the future. We are not visionaries. And one wonders whether there's a group of Kenyans who have identified our national security interests that are able to look at the future. Instead, what we do is we've got a very short-term view to long-term things, which doesn't work well for the nation.
And I remember something during the submissions by Minority Leader Francis Nyenze, when he was making his submissions in Parliament. He said that as much as Jubilee has the numbers and perhaps they would carry the day, they needed to remember that when it comes to the country, and with that polarizing election, with the country split right half down the middle, that they needed to remember that as much as CORD was a minority, they still commanded a lot. There are many people behind them who support them, and that perhaps they should have engaged them in consultations, to ensure that this is not about politics, but it's really about the issues and the country going forward. Do you think that would have been possible, looking at the nation where we are in terms of the division, still quite a divided country, yet to come together, that unity yet to be fostered?
Well, I don't think there's anybody in Kenya who is really, jumping up and about, whistling away that the president and his deputy are going to The Hague. Nobody is really interested in having them committed to jail if they're found guilty. And it would be important for the majority leader, Honorable Duale, when he's coming up with any motion in Parliament, to consult with the minority leader. The fact that they're in the opposition or in the minority does not mean that they don't take care of our interest. They represent so many people's interest across the political divide. And when the majority leader says that we need to have a bipartisan approach to this issue, yet there is no serious consultation with the CORD members of Parliament, it doesn't make sense. And even if you've got about the tyranny of numbers, the tyranny of numbers is supposed to be used in the favor of Wanjiku at all times. So that when you have the tyranny of numbers, it doesn't give you the opportunity to do as you wish. Because, for the next 5 years, provided there's not any defection or realignment, the tyranny of numbers is going to work in favor of Jubilee. But we want to be sure that the tyranny of numbers is used to benefit Wanjiku, not special interest groups. And I think there must be consultation. Although, again, for politicians, we never trust them, because whatever they say in Parliament could be the converse of what they were saying. Because Honorable Midiwo said that he was in conversation with Duale till very late in the evening. So you wonder, what were they talking about? Were they discussing having a drink, or were they discussing serious national politics?
Yeah, and just to wind up on that conversation, it's interesting when we talk about bipartisan, that would be the way to go. But yesterday, when one of the, I think from the Jubilee, one of the members said that let's put politics aside, let's look at this on the face of it and discuss its merits, and they burst out in laughter, saying, really, that's not going to work, that's not going to happen. Anyway, let's move on to another story. Of course, this one we'll continue to watch very closely and see how it develops in the coming days. But the VAT, of course, the biggest concern now is that many unscrupulous traders are taking advantage and even hiking prices of VAT exempt goods. So it's really a concern. As much as we saw the Cabinet Secretary Treasury tell traders not to take advantage, they are. I mean, what is not enough? So it's really a bad situation Kenya is finding itself in.
It's really appalling that now now milk, half a packet is $1, and the bread is $1, and those are the same prices paid in the US and the other developed economies. And for me, maybe from an economics perspective, we shouldn't be making noise today about VAT, because the National Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, he can issue statements asking traders not to review their prices, but because we're in a free economy where demand meets supply, they'll do as they so desire. For me, I think the long-term solution is to see how we can sort out unemployment in Kenya, so that most of us have got disposable incomes. That even if you increase the cost of milk or bread to $2, it does not become material in our disposable incomes. Like, for instance, poor Wanjiku who stays in Kibera and earns, say, 200 shillings every day will not be able to buy 2 packets of milk and bread. So that's only milk and bread. So when you look at that philosophy, they'll not even be able to buy food. And about 70% of Kenyans live on less than $1 a day. So that's really bad. And for me, I would imagine that our members of parliament or Duale, maybe again we need now to have a special sitting to address unemployment in Kenya, to find out how do we be sure that we create opportunities so that when you have a VAT bill coming up and there's an increase in the cost of goods and services, it does not become material in our accounts. That you can even increase the cost of bread to $5, but nobody gets to feel the pinch. And that's the expectation what our MPs should be doing today, instead of just trying to please special interest groups.
Okay, let's move on to page 8 of the Standard, and jurists fault Supreme Court ruling. So they said that the 6 judges did not give personal reasons and methods used to uphold Uhuru's victory. At the same time, we have Justice Mohammed Ibrahim, who was present in this conference in Mombasa, and he's saying that he feels that the time of the petition should be extended from 14 days. Of course, remember, it was very constrained to 45 days. And in essence, the discussion which is coming up is that substantial justice was sacrificed for technicalities, because we saw a lot of that being upheld, the timelines that they were bound, so they did not have time to do some of these things. What do you think about this debate? Well,
for me, I was actually shocked to see that statement from Justice Ibrahim. Because when he said, had they gone through the evidence, the outcome would have been different. Then he's opened a can of worms. Because essentially there are 2 options. That President Kenyatta had won, or we would have gone for a by-election. Because the Supreme Court has no powers to declare the other person. It did not have powers to declare Raila Odinga a winner. So for me, I think that's a can of worms. And it's really in bad taste for him to do that in public. Because anybody who said, all the supporters for Raila Odinga would say, one of the people who took a decision that the president had won has given up and said that had they gone through our evidence, we would have won. And I think that's really in bad taste. I think it's a bit reckless on his part to say that in public.
And he was sent by the Chief Justice. So the Chief Justice was supposed to attend, who did not, and then instead sent him. So do we see this as him speaking for the Chief Justice, or perhaps a man or a judge who just spoke and perhaps got his foot in the mouth?
Well, the footage I saw, he was not reading a speech.
Yeah.
I would imagine that if he was sent by the Chief Justice, then would have been reading a written speech and saying, I'm reading this on his behalf. And it appeared to me that those were off-the-cuff remarks.
Okay.
And for me, I think because maybe he was in the company of his, colleagues in the profession, his learned friends, he decided to drop his guard. And I think that's really bad, because people in court and people in civil society are going to make a meal out of this. They'll say, all along we've told you that the ruling was not free and fair.
Yes.
And they're going to make a lot of noise about it. And that was really, I think that was a critical lapse in judgment on his part.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's received a warning already from the Chief Justice.
Yeah.
Because now everybody's doubting the decision-making process.
Yes.
That how could you sacrifice solid evidence because of technicalities? Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, let's go on to our story again here at KTN. We've been covering exclusively on the Bungoma Hospital. You've watched that?
Yes, we hope your journalist is safe.
Yeah, we hope he's safe. Yes, he received threats, but of course, we trust he will be safe. On page 11 of the Standard, Lusaka now sorry for hospital incident. We're seeing, and a lot of what we've been hearing from Kenyans has been so much feedback on the same, and it was unfortunate that incident happened, but the government in its part needing to step up in terms of manpower in these facilities, that when you tell women they can go and give birth for free in hospitals, and this is what then we are seeing as the treatment, then it's really counterproductive what they are willing or offering to Kenyans, and it's a really great thing to do for the country, but at the same time measures need to be put in place to ensure it's sustainable and it works.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the case of capacity, that we don't have capacity in all our medical hospitals. And probably before we could make the maternal care free, we would have worked on increasing capacity, on having more beds, and training the medical staff to appreciate that when a patient comes to the hospital, is actually a client, you treat them with a lot of care.
Yes.
And when you look the footage as was captured, this poor lady was delivering on the floor. And when the two nurses came, on the worst case scenario, they should have even brought a mat or a kanga and spread it and assist her. But you see now they were asking the lady very ridiculous questions, that why are you crying, why are you giving birth, and really insulting. And that has got nothing to do with even capacity. I mean,
it's inhumane.
Yeah, it's just acting like, if you remember your history, orangutan, that is really unacceptable. Because a poor mother has come to an hospital and probably has seen messages, the president has indicated free maternal care, so she's going to deliver. And some of the people who work within the public service are actually sabotaging. You can't rule out sabotage, because these people would say, okay, the president said it's free maternal care, we are going to do as we so please. And for me, I think those two ladies plus the leadership of that particular hospital should not just be transferred, because I had the governor Lusaka saying they need to be transferred.
They'll take the same problem.
Who's done a mistake doesn't work. They should be taken to court. I think that's negligence. You cannot see a woman delivering and then you start asking her, why are you pregnant? I mean, those are really ridiculous questions. You know what they say, Maswali Apumwani? It's unacceptable, and they must be disciplined. Maybe the Attorney General or Keriako Tobiko should see whether they've committed any crime, because that's really bad. And I don't know whether there's any now rational woman who is about to deliver who will go to a public hospital unless that's the last resort. And you see, how many of us can afford to go to Nairobi Hospital for delivery, where you'll be required to pay up to $250,000? So really, I don't expect Mr. Macharia, actually the cabinet secretary for healthcare, he should have been at that hospital yesterday to sort out issues. But because the way we respond normally in Kenya, because it's a poor woman in the village, nobody bothers. That's why you saw everybody running to the airport when there was a fire. But when there is a clash at Intulele, nobody goes. When people are dying in Transmara, nobody goes. When this poor woman is being given a beating for delivering, nobody goes to take care of those issues.
Okay. We hope that situation will be resolved conclusively. Still on the same page, of course, Nigeria's president is here. Good luck is here in the country.
He's come with some good.
He's come with some good luck. And of course, very many businessmen. What do we expect to see from this visit? We talked a bit about it the other day, but he's come with very many businessmen. Our relations with Nigeria, a little bit constrained in the past, but Amina Mohammed, the cabinet secretary, has said that those are stuff that really are ironed out. But hoping to forge ties in terms of trade, economic, very critical and important, one of the priorities in President Kenyatta's foreign policy. But what else do we see in this visit?
Well, for me, I've got a specific interest in international trade, and the perception, the relationship between Kenya and Nigeria being strained, I think it's erroneous. Because I doubt whether one gentleman in the name of Chinedu can cause a strain between the two nations. I think what had happened in the past is we didn't have a direct flight between Nairobi and Lagos. So if you wanted to go to West Africa, you had to go to Europe. And for me, I think for good luck Jonathan to come to Kenya, that's really something that we must celebrate. And one was hoping that it would be given a preferential treatment in our national conversations or debate today, that good luck Jonathan is coming to Kenya. And you notice, unlike other presidents, when they do international visits, they go with sycophants, people from their political parties. Him is coming with businessmen. And one of them is the richest man in Africa, Dangote. I mean, people who have a lot of money. And there was even a conversation last evening that maybe we should now let Dangote, because he knows how to run the sugar sector. He's able to distribute sugar and cereals in Nigeria across the entire country at the same price. Maybe we need him to come to Kenya and assist us sort out Mumia's Sugar and other companies. And I think for us, we really should open opportunities. Make sure that when somebody wants to go to Nigeria, you get your visa on arrival. You don't need to queue for hours on end at either our High Commission or the Commission to get a visa, and encourage international trade. I mean, for instance, you'll be surprised or probably shocked that Nigerians consume Kenyan tea and Kenyan coffee, but we are not able to sell our tea directly. Our tea has to go to Europe for processing, then it goes to South Africa before it goes to Nigeria. So we really need to encourage these trade opportunities, and I'm hoping that our Kenyan businessmen will engage them in very useful conversations and run away from this phobia that Nigerians sometimes tend to get crafty, because you know that's resident in every country. And right now we have big banks like EcoBank operating in the two countries. I think there's a UBA and many more banks. So we must maximize on that. And I think Ambassador Amina Mohamed has done very well, because international trade now is in a domain, and we expect to see many more of these presidents coming to Kenya so that Kenya can take advantage of the opportunities in Africa. You even remember when Clinton was here, she said the biggest tragedy within Africa is we don't do trade between ourselves. I mean, we prefer to do trade with the whites and the Asians,
and yet they're the ones who benefit more than we do. The balance is not equal.
The balance is equal. And you know, it's easy to do business with an African man because you can even discuss in your mother tongue. But we want to do things with the whites who do not treat us with respect. Because when you want to deal with a white man or an Indian man or somebody maybe Chinese, most of the time you'll be acting to the terms of conditions. They'll tell you this is the way we want us to do business. But for an African, you know, with the same skin color and probably the same social setting, it would be easier to do business.
It would be easier. One more story in the Standard before you move on to the Nation. Move to impeach Nyeri governor. Gachagua accused of spending 210 million shillings without approval and discrediting county assembly members. The man is in trouble.
You know, we had indicated that with the devolution coming, we are going to be devolving corruption to the counties. And if in case that story is true, then it's coming to reality. For instance, he's already spent that money, and probability is very high that there was no public tendering. It was not competitive. He sat at his executive office and probably awarded himself all those tenders and contracts. So that's why you remember the other day you were saying we need to have somebody who can audit all the counties to be sure that the money is being spent for the right purpose. In the Daily Nation, the headline, the story that was big yesterday, drama as MPs vote to pull out of Hague. But another story on the top page is the one on devolution, and the state finally sent 16 billion shillings to counties, and Nairobi has received the biggest share from the National Treasury, receiving 807 million out of the 9.5 billion it was entitled to from the Exchequer. Interesting divisions we are seeing here, allocations. Because, you know, the reason why they're sending the money in tranches, it's not as if the treasury has got the money seated there. Because now they've increased the VAT, so they'll be collecting money and sending it in tranches. And for us, our only hope is that the governors are not going to be using this money for, you know, recurrent expenditure to the limits. They need to look at buying for us facilities, especially capital expenditure. Like one would have expected. I mean, it said that Governor Lusaka in Bungoma wanted to use about $1 million to fight pornography, yet we've now seen that his main hospital has no facilities for maternal care. So you begin to wonder, I mean, is the priority fighting pornography, assuming that it's resident in Bungoma? Is the priority to fight pornography or to give maternal facilities? Unless he's telling us that the woman who delivered is a result of pornography, that maybe she was acting in a movie and then she got pregnant. But still, they need to use more of this money in ensuring that it's used for development expenditure instead of them buying the top of the range vehicles and other facilities which may not help a woman wants to deliver.
All right, page 5 of this Nation. Bensouda allowed to add new witnesses. The case is 3 days away. Tuesday the trial begins against Deputy President William Ruto. But now there's a decision, and it's a relief for the prosecutor after witnesses opted not to testify against Ruto and Sang. Now the ICC trial chamber yesterday allowed prosecutor Fatou Bensouda to add 2 new witnesses to her list in the case against Ruto. Very interesting that they've been added and then they'll be made known to the defense teams on Monday, one day ahead of the trial.
You know, Bensouda is repaying them in the same coin, because I think she had prepared a number of witnesses to assist her case. And when they drop her on the 11th hour, I think she's justified also to get new witnesses on the same hour, because she's got a particular case that she wants to prosecute. And I'm positive that the Deputy President Ruto has got sufficient resources to go and wage a very successful case to prove to the entire world that he is not guilty of the crimes he's accused of. And one shouldn't wonder, even if they add another, that somebody to support their case as the case is ongoing, I don't think there's anything wrong, because Bensouda has got a responsibility to prove that Deputy President Ruto participated in committing those crimes as the allegations go. And on the same note, Ruto also has got a basic mandate to prove to the entire world that in fact he did not participate and the accusations do not merit anything.
All right, let's move on now to the STAR and heading there, as we are seeing in most papers today, ICC here to probe witness bribery. A bit different, away from the vote yesterday. The story on page 6. It's very interesting that we've also been seeing very many of these witnesses dropping out, and that the prosecutor has said there's been a lot of witness tampering and unprecedented cases of witness tampering. And of course the big question is who is doing that. We do not know, but there's a lot of speculation. But now a team of investigators from the ICC has arrived in Kenya to probe reports that its witnesses are being bribed to abandon the cases facing the president, the deputy and Sang at The Hague. So 5 officials visited Eldoret yesterday and then headed to East African countries where bribery of witnesses has allegedly taken place.
Well, it's interesting for Bensouda to say that the witnesses are dropping out because of bribery, or they've been given other sort of inducement. And I think for me at this stage, Bensouda should not be concentrating on the sideshows. Right. Because, by them trying to say that some people have been given money so that they don't appear before the Hague and give evidence, she's losing focus on the ball. The ball is for her to prosecute the case. These other sideshows maybe should be left for a later date. Yes. But she must stay focused on proving her case. Just like Ruto is staying focused on proving that he is innocent. When you see the ICC saying that some guys are victims of bribery, I don't think that serves Wanjiku, because Wanjiku wants to see that people who are guilty of these offenses are prosecuted. The side shows I don't think they count for much. Okay.
And on page 9, we've been seeing quite a lot of drama unfolding in our city, in the capital. And now Kidero has suspended 500 striking city workers. And Benson Olinga, the Nairobi County branch chairman of the Kenya County Government Workers Union, is among those that have been suspended. What is it with these strikes and the unrest, and also we're expecting parking fee to shoot up high?
For me, I think Dr. Kidero has been a major letdown as far as the city is concerned, because when he was campaigning, he told us one of the things he was going to sort out was, the traffic jams, the garbage collection, and ensure that things work. But that one has not happened to date. And he has admitted that his government has got about 11,000 members of staff, and he only needs 5,000. So one wonders how come is not fired the 5,000. Because why should we have an extra 6,000 people working at the county government who do not add value in this city?
Right.
And yet these are the same guys you want to increase their pay. I mean, somebody's earning 20,000. He comes to the office early in the morning, he does nothing. I mean, once in a while they'll go and beat up the hawkers in the streets.
Yes.
But he does nothing the entire day, and then he's demanding for an increase. And the governor has got guts to tell us that now I want to increase taxes, I want to increase the parking fees. I think really he needs to take a break. He probably needs a vacation in Mombasa with his government.
Right.
For him to know that, I mean, there's no way people in Nairobi would be paying a fortune expecting services, but these guys do not go to work. And to add insult to injury, they want their salaries increased for not working. And I think those are the 6,000 members of staff must be really lucky in Kenya, because I don't know anybody who gets paid for not working and then they have the guts to demand for a salary increase.
Okay. Let's move on to the paper, the People newspaper. And one of the top stories there on the headline, storming houses, Kenya cuts ICC ties, but on the bottom of that page, state releases 3.3 billion shillings for final resettlement of IDPs. Are you confident that this will finally end the question of IDPs?
No, you know, that has become now a very boring song.
Yeah.
You remember the minister, the minister in charge of special programs, her name has just disappeared. I think she's a member for Nyeri Town. She keeps on saying every day that we are going to resettle the IDPs, and even the president gave a lot of instructions from State House that they should be sorted out once and for all.
Yes.
So for me, that statement is not comforting at all. And even if they were able to do that, I mean, right now we have clashes ongoing in Moyale, in Transmara, in Trans Nzoia, and we are still creating new IDPs. So for me, that statement doesn't fly. Instead, what these senior officers in government should be doing is to tell us we have now resettled the IDPs finally with totality, instead of them giving us statements of intention. Because I think as a nation, we are tired of statements. Actions speak louder than words, and that's what we expect. I mean, you know, every single cabinet secretary has been making pronouncements, and I think probably the only one who has achieved a lot of progress is Amina Mohamed, because she said, I'm going to work on economic diplomacy, and you see Jonathan coming in. And from the way I understand the conversations are going, it's not even about a diplomatic relationship. That we have our High Commissioner in Lagos, they have a High Commissioner in Kenya, who spend a lot of time, you know, enjoying single malt whiskey. That one has become history. Now they are saying it's going to be about trade. And understand the success of any officer within Ambassador Mohamed's office is going to be on the levels of trade. I mean, how many missions have you assisted create? Have you grown trade? If it's tea and coffee between Kenya and Nigeria, have we seen increased figures? Those are the performance indicators. And that's what we expect from other cabinet secretaries. Because merely giving statements of intention, we are really tired. You know, those promissory notes are becoming bankrupts, and they will not help the nation in any way. Like, for instance, if good luck Jonathan is able to, or rather we are able to cut deals with his delegation, because understand there was a lot of activity at the airport yesterday. I mean, Kenyans have not seen such top-of-the-range private jets and rich men really coming out. Some guys were comparing our top business leaders as guys who drive tuk-tuks. Because for the first time we saw real jets. But if you're able to now translate this to job opportunities, it means that a poor Wanjiku who cannot afford to buy milk at $1 will probably have a new market in Nigeria where they can sell their tea and coffee, so that if Ruticha, the National Treasury, wants to have a VAT go even to 20%, they will not feel the impact. And I think as the Jubilee administration, that's the direction they're supposed to be following. Because, you know, giving us promises every day, we are sick and tired. Actually, for me, whenever they make a promise, that's the moment for you to yawn and say, okay, what else are you going to say? It really doesn't make sense at all.
Okay, finally, as the Deputy President travels to The Hague for his trial, of course, we understand quite a number of Jubilee members would be accompanying him. But an interesting side note is that a number of members from Coalition for Reforms and Democracy will also accompany him. What do you read into that?
Well, it would be interesting to know who are those CORD members of Parliament. Maybe the guys that the leadership, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo, should be looking at carefully. It means they're about to ditch him, because, you know, they're going to be expressing solidarity. But again, one wonders, what's the rational thinking behind having 100 members of Parliament going to The Hague? I mean, would it add value to the case in any manner? Or maybe as a typical politician, Mr. Ruto wants to see that my MP is back from whom they have come all the way. But again, another question is, who is footing those bills? Are they being paid by the government? Are they coming from CDF? or maybe they've held Mina Rambes in every constituency for them to put the bills for members of parliament. And for me, I think these MPs should let Mr. Ruto and his team concentrate on his case instead of again going to form sideshows around The Hague. Because these MPs, instead of them traveling to The Hague, the 100 MPs, that's about a third of our parliament, they should be seated right here in Nairobi. Maybe ask Laboso to convene another special session for us to address unemployment. Because, you know, that's a time bomb. When you have more than 70% of Kenyans not being able to work, and another bigger portion that cannot be able to buy bread and milk every day, and then you have this team going to The Hague, it doesn't really make any sense. It's unacceptable. But again, you know, all these guys are politicians. When you're seeing that you are very loyal to Ruto, chances of you winning another election are very high. So I think
all about
it's about the election. Selfish interest. The travel to Hague has got nothing to do with poor Wanjiko in Kenya today who can't afford to buy milk.
True. Dismas Mukua, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Always a pleasure.
For
breaking down some of these stories we're seeing making headlines in our papers today. And thank you for watching Morning Express. This is how we wind up the first hour. Do grab yourself a copy of the Standard newspaper. It's your bold newspaper. And of course, later on when Tamima comes on, she will be taking over for the entertainment segment. We'll be looking at the Pulse. She'll be looking at what's in the Pulse, and of course the Nairobian and all the other stories that regard entertainment and the lighter side of life. I wish you a wonderful Friday. I'm off to enjoy my weekend. Do enjoy yourself. Stay safe, and God bless.